Hi, everybody. Good morning. And I want to just introduce this session very briefly. My name is Martha Blackshaw, and I'm a long-term member of the Arts Council Board, the Arts Council of Anne Arundel County Board, and have been head of the task force on DEIA and co-chair of the grants committee for a long time. So although I don't know everybody in person, I know everybody's name just about who's been a grants who's been involved in requesting grants from the Arts Council, and many of you I may have met on other sessions, on other Zoom sessions, or even if you've been around for a long time, like Rob, I've met you many times in person. So welcome. I just wanted to say this is lecture 4 in a series of 6 lectures. The next 2 will take place in July and June and July, and Angela, who's going to introduce our speaker, will mention more about those. But I just wanted to say that we appreciate some funding that we've got from the ACDF. We appreciate everybody's support. As you know, the Arts Council started to work on its own program and support for DEIA issues several years ago, and we have a very strong statement on our website in support of this. And today we're going to be very lucky to have Rob talk about partnering for impact and the importance of partnerships for achieving DEIA goals. So let me stop here and turn it over to Angela, and let's go.
Good morning, everyone. As Martha was saying, well, my name is Angela Wilson, and I'm with the AngelWing project. And as Martha was saying, this is our 4th conversation. So initially, we started out with Ruby Lopez from Americans for the Arts. And then we had a session called Where Are We and Who Are We and Who Do We Want to Be? Then we had community engagement, and then I'm very excited today for Partnering for Impact. I think that's really one of the keys to being a successful nonprofit organization is partnerships and to make a greater impact in your community. So I am really excited to introduce our speaker for today, Rob Levit. He's an acclaimed leader, a sought-after organizational consultant, and strategic advisor to nonprofit, educational, and government organizations. As the executive director of Creating Communities, Rob and his team have delivered innovative arts programs to hundreds of children, youth, and families in Annapolis and Anne Arundel County for more than 15 years. Creating Communities received the 2020 Celebration of Philanthropy Innovation Award from the CFAAC for its service during the pandemic. As a community arts practitioner, Rob has personally worked with hospice patients, war veterans, adults in addiction recovery, women in domestic violence shelters, adults with mental illness, and many more. He is a Martin Luther King Peacemaker Award recipient, Innovator of the Year recipient from the Maryland Daily Record, and Community Trustee recipient from Leadership Anne Arundel. So he lives in Annapolis with his wife and son, and he enjoys reading, listening to music, cooking, dinner with his family, visits to Squam Lake, New Hampshire. And if you want more information, you can go to the website, creatingcommunities.net. So I would like to welcome back, for some of you who already know him, and introduce to others, Mr. Rob Levit.
Good morning, everybody. Thank you to the AngelWing Project, the Arts Council, Chesapeake Arts Center for sponsoring these awesome series. And I'm just so grateful to be asked to be a part of it and really hopefully make a difference for you in the short amount of time that we have together. So today's session is Partnering for Impact. I've been a nonprofit director for 15 years. And so I want to just give you some of the things from my perspective that I've learned. Obviously, you don't have to agree with me. Some of the things might be like, whoa, I don't think that. And that's okay too. So I'm just here to offer my perspective and maybe some different inroads into how we can create greater impact through our partnerships. I will say that one of our key partners, Ronche Clark, is on our call today. And so hopefully a little bit later, I'm going to introduce her, and we're going to just talk a little bit about some of the things that we've done together. I would say in my 15 years of working as an executive director, that my partnership with Ron Che and her mega programs probably our most significant partnership in many, many years, because it's doing so many good things in the community. And it was a hard-earned partnership, and I think there's a lot of lessons that I can share and we can share about that. All right. So feel free to use your chat. You know, I give prompts. I'm very interactive. I want to hear from you. And I do talk a lot, but I do want to create a lot of opportunity for us to interact together. And of course, we'll have time for questions at the end. As I said, thank you to the Arts Council, Chesapeake Arts Center, and AngelWing for sponsoring these awesome sessions that we can all learn from. All right. So let's use the chat and start off with a prompt. Okay, I want to hear your thoughts. I have this idea of what is a minimally viable partnership. In other words, for it to just be minimally effective, in other words, the basic things have to get done for it to be an effective partnership. Write down a word or a phrase or any idea you have in the chat. What would make a basic building block or basic building blocks of a minimally viable partnership? What are our ingredients? So I'll be looking at chat and just reading those out loud. What makes a mutually beneficial, excellent, good relationships, understood shared outcomes, common goals, good communication, awesome. Let's see if a couple more of those come in. Filling a gap between organizations, love that. Clear communication, community impact. Okay, excellent. What do you need me for then today? Just kidding. All right. That's great. Great answer. So let's keep all those things in mind. And so I kind of came up with this idea of what is a minimally viable partnership. For it to be effective, for the individual natures of our organizations, for the individual natures of the communities that we live in and work in, we have to have certain things that are basically non-negotiable. They have to be there. Now, they can be individual to your organization, but nonetheless, they do have to be there. I'm going to share a bunch of those today for creating communities and some of the other programs I'm involved in. So here's our learning agenda. I want to try to kind of maybe not answer all of these questions, but definitely give you some thoughts on these questions. Also, if I'm missing something from this list, let's collaborate together. Let's have our partnership. Just drop them into the chat. Say, hey, what about? And maybe I'll come up on another slide, but don't hesitate to share your ideas in the chat, okay? Number one, how do we find partners to have more of an impact? It can be hard to find partners, right? So how do we find those partners? What do we look for in a partnership? 3, how do we make a partnership mutually beneficial? 4, what are built-in accountabilities for a partnership? And 5, how do we measure our success? All right. So here's the first tool I want you to think about, is call this the partnership triangle. All right. Now you will get a copy of these slides, so don't feel like you're not going to remember these visuals and things like that. If you want to remember them, you've got a copy of these slides. So basically you have these in project management, which this is not project management, it's partnership. You have what's called constraints, right? Everything that we do in life has constraints. Same is true of partnerships. Basically, I've figured out that if your partner and your organization, or you and your partner, aren't contributing 2 of these 3 things, the partnership is not going to work. Number one, time, right? Somebody has got to put in the time. Some organization's got to put in the time to deliver on the mission. They've got to create something and they've got to do something. So they have to have the time to do that, right? So for example, in some of our partnerships of creating communities, the person who delivers those programs in our partnership, they have the time to do the actual delivery, okay? So I may not have as much time as they have, but I do have the resources, for example, money, funding, supplies, community connections, right? And also the energy. That means I can put in effort to it. It's not just time and resources, there has to be some effort. And I think you all have felt when you have a partnership where you feel like you're the only one putting energy into it, right? Anybody can relate to that? You have a partnership where it sounds good on paper, but at the end of the day, you're really the only one that's putting all that energy into it. So I think of all the three of those is making sure that you have an alignment of energy with your partners is really critical, right? So naturally, there's going to be waves of energy. Someone's going to have more energy. A partner's going to have more energy in one area than you do. But at the same time, there's both that commitment, that energy to the partnership is really important. Okay. So which of these three, and drop these in the chat, which would you say has been the most prevalent of the three that you bring to a partnership? Is it time, energy, or resources? What is it that when you have a partnership with a community partner, what are you all bringing to the table? Would you say it's your time, energy, or resources? I'd say for me, it's resources. Yeah, so, and I'm gonna talk about this in a few minutes. I see energy and time, and those are really amazing things, right? But we all know that we also need those resources, AKA money, supplies, in kind, things like that. Volunteers, that can be time and energy also. And if we have only two of the three, we've got to find some viability in a partnership that's going to help us have all three of those. Okay, so that partnership triangle is so critical. All right, let's talk about the different partnership zones. Think about this. You tell me if you think I'm on point here. Number one, I find that in general, ineffective partnerships are those that use high amount of resources, but there's low activity or ineffective activity, right? Especially early on with creating communities, we put a lot of resources into certain partnerships, but for a lot of different reasons, we'd only have 2 or 3 kids show up, or we'd have kids show up, but the staffing at our partner wasn't effective, and so there was no structure, but they weren't our kids to set those expectations for, which led to kind of an ineffective partnership because we were putting a lot of resources, and but the activity levels weren't really high. So basically, ineffective partnerships, you've either got to fix them up or you've got to remove them. Okay, part of what we do in the nonprofit sector is making very challenging decisions and making decisions to eliminate ineffective programs and partnerships. Can be really challenging, right? Because we have such big hearts for what we do, but if our partnerships are not leading us towards directly accomplishing our mission, they're ineffective, okay? Now, this is very prevalent in the nonprofit sector, and it's neither good or bad, but in general, I do not favor these, what I call in-name only partnerships, where there's low activity and low resources. So for example, you might sign a memorandum of understanding, or your name might be featured with a logo with 2 or 3 other organizations, but in reality, nobody's really doing anything. And I know maybe that sounds a little bit harsh, but that's not that uncommon. And there can be reasons to do that, such as for grants, or that you're aligned with a certain organization or a group. But at the end of the day, remember, we're partnering for impact. And if we have in-name only partnerships where we're not really engaged with the time, energy, and resources to create something dynamic and impactful for the community, I kind of consider that an in-name only partnership. Now, keep in mind, sometimes those are necessary for grants or kind of associative types of situations, but by and large, I don't think that that's a best practice, to say the least. Here's another one that comes up in partnerships all the time. High activity, like doing, getting stuff done, throwing lots of energy and time at things. But at the end of the day, you're always grasping for those resources and that money to sustain the program over long periods of time. And as you all know, the sector that we're in, it's very stressful trying to raise all of this money and try to keep things going. And so if we're always, if our outputs are higher than our inputs consistently, it starts to lead to burnout and exhaustion, and can lead to conflict even among partners. Like, we're doing all this stuff, but who's going to fund it? And, you know, I obviously won't use names for any of our partnerships that we've had that experience with, but for about 10 years, we had a partnership like that where we were putting in lots of activity, lots and lots of time, but the resources provided by the partner, there just was never that clear expectation created. And so we have really became tired of working with that partner, because our activity level was high, but there was no sharing of resources across the program. So let me get to the good stuff, which is, it's challenging, but it's good, is I call this the impact zone for partnerships. High activity, high resources, right? High activity is a perfect example is the work I do in creating community zones with Ron-Shay Clark, who's on this call today. We are, and I'm sure Ron-Shay can attest to this, and I want to make sure that I introduced her in a little bit once I get through the presentation. We are doing something all the time. There is always high activity, right? And also, because we have really partnered well together, we're trying to resource the best quality materials, the best activities, the best types of situations for the students that we're working with. So on her end, her area is high activity. She's amazing at putting all of these activities together, all of these events. And so there's high activity on her end. And so my piece is to bring a high level of resources to really kind of give the resources necessary to bring that vision to fruition. So one thing that you can take away from today's training that I think is really tangible is examine your partnerships and what zone are you in, okay? Examine what zone you're in. And because I'm so into strategic thinking, I'm really into elimination. And I really do think that sometimes, because we have such big hearts, we tend to be more of a catch-all for, oh yeah, we can do that, we can do that. And as I've gotten older as an executive director, really tried to move away from that kind of thinking where we can do everything, to saying where and with what partnerships can we have maximum impact to be effective for the communities we serve. Where, how can we have maximum impact through the partnerships that we have in the community? And that's your impact zone. Everything else is potentially a distraction to you partnering for impact. All right, I just gave you a mouthful, a lot of kind of really high level thoughts and so forth. You can type in the chat, or I wouldn't mind hearing just one or two comments on that. What do you think of what I'm saying? Type it in the chat or any comments. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, the main thing is relentlessly seek out your impact zone. High activity, high resources, right? If you're going to do something, I remember someone said to me one time, a funder, why do you pay your mentor so much money? Or why are you using these types of supplies? And I said, well, because don't we want to treat artists with the highest regard and pay them well? Don't we want to get our students the best supplies? Why should children, because they're living in a certain community, get supplies that are less of quality? That doesn't make sense to me. Okay. Martha writes, excellent conclusion, re-examining value of existing partnership. Exactly. Constantly assess your partnerships. Pay people what they're worth. I agree with you. All right. So I've talked a little bit about this, but there are many types of partnerships. And again, like I said, you're going to get this. you're going to get this PowerPoint. Number one, we talked about in name only or associative. It's not necessarily a bad thing, but they're not going to have the impact, right? Sometimes it makes us feel good to be associated with a certain group because we're checking a box. And sometimes, yes, we do have to do that, but that's not really going to lead to where we want to go with building an equitable society, right? That doesn't cost us anything. It doesn't take any effort on our part. Two, and I've had many of these, and these are good, is I've had ad hoc, temporary, or situational, or per project partnerships where there was an intense block of work, and then when that block of work ended, we weren't really partners anymore, and those are good too. So last summer with Centro DEIA, or Center of Help here in Annapolis, we did 2 weeks of STEM and summer programming with Center of Help, and it was awesome. And we did all this STEAM and STEM stuff as well. But when that ended, we really don't have that kind of level of partnership anymore. And that's okay. It's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing bad about that. It's just that sometimes you do an intense block of work and then you back away, and then maybe that'll come back at some time. Geographic. So we have a partnership with, give me a second, I'm having trouble naming. We have partnerships in Glenbury with Southgate Elementary and Marley Elementary School, and the charter school in Laurel. And because those are geographic, because as an executive director, I got really tired of everything being, not everything, but a lot of things being centered around Annapolis, right? Anne Arundel County is a great big wide county with a lot of diversity and different cultures and different ways of doing things in different parts of the county. So I wanted to make sure that we had good geographic partnerships, right? We had good geographic partnerships, and that can expand your reach and not have you be only kind of concentrating in a certain geographic area. That takes work, okay? Now, complementary. These are the kind of things where, like with Ron Shea and her mega program, we're an arts organization. She is an organization that has all these amazing students and all of these kids, and she's very creative, very artistic person. And so we have complementary missions, right? Because our mission is to partner directly with organizations, community centers, nonprofits, and like-minded organizations that see the arts as being of primacy into the social fabric of our community, right? We want the arts to be at the center of what we do. So establishing partnership with Ron Shea is complementary, right? We're fulfilling each other's missions. We're fulfilling each other's missions. And I stopped calling it community outreach. I call it community inreach, right? Because we're reaching into communities. We're not reaching out, right? We're going into communities and being part of those communities. And the only way to really do that is to form partnerships with people that know, live, or work, or understand, or have a relationship with those communities. And then obviously we talked a little bit about passive partnerships. Those can be good sometimes. Like, for example, if an organization has a space, if an organization has a physical space and you need that physical space, it may or may not cost that organization anything. So they're more of a passive partner, but they do give you that space for you to use. And so that's more of that passive partnership, can be very important. So we're over in Eastport United Methodist Church. We have an arts program every Wednesday. I had to think about that for a second, at 1000 Madison Street. And so we set up our tables and art supplies right in the parking lot at Eastport United Methodist Church. Doesn't really cost them anything, but because they have programs there, they're a trusted community partner, they're more of a passive partner as opposed to a direct partner or active partner, but that space is really invaluable to us. And then obviously active, I've already talked a lot about that, is high energy, high time requirements, high resources, very active. And then finally, the greatest of all partners, sustaining and life-giving. So I would say my relationship with Ron Shea and Mega Program, you know, I consider that, I mean, I've been doing this for a long time, 15 years, day in and day out. But I consider like your sustaining and life-giving partnerships where you're really going to the next level and trying to be relational and trying to understand from a heart level and from, I don't want to use throw the word spiritual around, but from kind of a deeply connected level, you're trying to understand your partner and they're trying to understand you. Even through challenging times, you're working through issues. You're not walking away. You're not checking the boxes. That sustaining and life-giving partnership really represents those kind of deeper commitments. All right, I'm just starting to finally get warmed up here. Comments for me so far. You can type them in the chat, or you can just raise your hand or just start talking, since I can't see everybody because my PowerPoint's up.
And I'm here to help you, Rob.
All right, yeah. So
if I see hands.
Yeah, if you see any hands, or if you have comments, I love comments. It lets me know I'm on the right track. Okay, great. Thanks, Angela. I just want to know I'm on the right track. All right, so let's look at some of these questions. How do we find partners that have more of an impact? All right, let's do it. Number one, if you don't have mission alignment, it's not going to work, right? You don't necessarily have to partner with an arts organization, right? That's not what it's all about. But you do have to have some alignment, like, hey, we're really trying to make an impact in the community by fill in the blank. How are we trying to have an impact in the community? So for me, it's youth, right? For many, many years, we worked with, I want to say almost everybody. And then about 9 years ago, when I realized I was not going to make it, and I was so burned out, I was so miserable and depressed, I just said, we have to make a tough decision. Where are we going to have the most impact? It's going to be with youth programs. And I personally stopped delivering programs. I don't deliver any programs anymore. I haven't for a long time, because you have to find that alignment with your partners. I think I've gotten wiser now. And in the early years when I had more energy, sometimes you can force fit partnerships because you so really need the partnership that you can kind of force fit it. But if you listen to your heart and your instinct and your gut and your head, you know when it's a good fit and when it isn't a good fit, right? And so mission alignment isn't like a verbatim, this is what our mission is and it aligns. It's more of also how you interact and what you're trying to do, and is the nonprofit effective. Now, as I've said with Ron Shea, I mean, I hope she says the same thing when she got when I introduce her. But relationship development is really important if you're going to have an impact, because like I know how committed she is to the kids and the mega program, and so and she knows how committed I am to the arts. That I would say that it's not uncommon. I can be a little hard to reach at times sometimes, and she's let me know that. That's part of that relationship development. But I would say when we're really busy, we're either texting or calling almost every day, okay? Or almost every day, and sometimes every day or multiple times a day, depending on what we're working on. So that relationship development is, if you're going to really have impact, remember, we're in the human relations field, right? This is about getting to know each other. And that's really ties in nicely to the DEIA piece. Is we're not going to feel connected to one another unless we understand each other. And that takes development, relationship development. Number three, same kind of thing as risk taking. When we first started working together, I would say to Ranche, well, let's do this, this, and this, and this. And then we were doing it in the context of another program, which I'm not going to mention today, but it wasn't really working that well. And so I think I can't remember what happened exactly, but I said, what is it you really want to do? And I said, she said, I really want to put on these events. And I said, well, we can put them on, but remember, we have to have mission alignment. They have to have an arts component to them. So I think we both realized, wow, we're onto something with this partnership. She put on a women's leadership conference, and we had 76 women come. This was just a few months ago. And that was over in Annapolis Gardens. And it was just awesome. I just was like, boom, we hit this one because we took a risk, put on this women's leadership conference. a lot of resources, a lot of time, energy, and resources, money went into that. But we had 76 women who otherwise would not have had the opportunity to participate in the neighborhoods that they live in this leadership program. It was like, boom, we hit that. So our next thing is we have this art of fatherhood, kind of a father-daughter dance coming up. And there's going to be creative component, arts components to this. But it's just about, remember the name of the organization runs Creating Communities. That's what we do. So that's that mission alignment. And she loves putting these events together. She's really good at it. And so we do that. Now, 4, this goes right into this talent and potential identification. It's really easy as somebody who's very experienced in this field for me to go in and say, this is going to work, this is going to work, let's do this, let's do this. But I think working with Ron Shea and other partners, I've had to really take a step back and say, what is it that you're really good at? What is it that's your passion? What is it that you really want to do? And how can we align that around the mission of both of our programs? And so I think this really ties in nicely to the DEIA conversation is, don't put people in roles because you think they should be there. You, as a organizational director, nonprofit leader, is part of our work is to finding the potential of the people that we want to work with, and I don't want to use the word unleashing their potential, but like maximizing or creating opportunities for them to express their potential. And that's really important to me now. That's really important to me now. It might be the most important thing in the partnership conversation. You know, I have a former intern from high school now who's now a paid mentor. I have 2, I almost said girls, because when they were in middle school, when they met Mr. Rob, that's what the students call me. They're in their late 20s now, 2 women, 2 professional women. They came from the communities we serve. They're now board members of Creating Communities. So this idea of the nonprofit as a talent and potential developer of those that we want to help us achieve our mission within the communities we serve, it might be the most important thing. All right. Someone said this earlier in the chat, mutual needs to be met. Yeah, I mean, we have arts. We need to keep delivering arts programs. We like to bang out those arts programs and place them in communities. So we have a lot of needs. We need mentors. We need programs. We want to be directly in the communities we serve. And so we try to develop that talent potential within the communities we serve so we can deliver on our mission promise. All right. I'm keeping an eye on this time. I'm going to run out of time as usual. I'm talking too much. So what do we look for in a partnership? I'm into innovation. I want to do new things. I don't want to duplicate everything. I'm looking for blue oceans, not red oceans, right? I've started to see Annapolis is such a crowded space. Everyone's doing so much. I was like, it's too much noise for my ADD brain. And so we've really tried to find partners that have untapped potential or communities where there are few program options, and really not, instead of where the red ocean where all the sharks are swimming and everyone's doing this and it's so much noise. I'm looking for places where aren't people serving? Who are the people that have a voice that aren't the big voices in the art scene, that have a voice and could really be amazing if they have somebody that really supports a partnership with them. Bias toward action. I don't have any time to waste. We got to get things done. So if it's going to be kind of like a million meetings, I'm not going to be there. Okay. No mites or coulds. It's like, here's the plan. Here's what we're doing. Let's do it. And now, number 5, track record. You don't always have to have like an amazing track record. That's where that potential comes in. But I want to see that at least you're doing something, or you have a vision that you're doing it. And you know, in Ranche's case, she was already doing so much. I was like, let's get that going. Let's resource that and really push that and really see where we can take it to the next level. And I know it's a little controversial, but I'm not a huge fan of these kind of huge convenings of programs and this collective impact stuff. I mean, I like it. Don't get me wrong. I know I say some controversial things. It's part of who I am. But a lot of times after like 3 meetings, I'm saying, we're not getting anything done. We could just be out in the community doing something right now. So I've gotten cautious in my old age of wasteful engagements, making sure that that our partners agree that everything that we do has to be purposeful. All right. How do we make partnerships mutually beneficial? You got to have expectations and norms, right? I think Ron Shea at one point told me, say, hey, you're not that easy to get a hold of. I'm trying to get a hold of you, and absolutely understandable. And so I've made a real effort to be much more communicative and try to take care of things when I can really take care of them. Psychological safety, which simply means like we have to hold each other. We have to hold each other in a caring and compassionate space, knowing that our partnerships aren't going to be perfect. We're human beings. We're frail. We have flaws. We make mistakes all the time. I know I do all the time, but knowing that that's not going to be judged, or that we're holding each other in a kind of that psychologically safe space where we can be ourselves important. Frequent communication. I like to over communicate when possible, even as I'm hard to get a hold of sometimes. And then also we have to watch out for power imbalances. There's times where, like, if I'm the one with the money, I've got to make sure that I'm not throwing my weight around with the partner. That's not right, and that's not fair, right? And we can inadvertently, that's that unconscious bias that we can fall into if we're not careful. Just because you have more resources doesn't give you more authority or power in that partnership relationship. Productive conflict. Hey, if you're going to have a conflict, get something out of it. If you're going to get into conflict with your partner, have a pathway to work through it. And then obviously complementary skills and mindsets. Like when I work with Ron Shea, like, the idea of that father-daughter dance, art of fatherhood, like that mindset, that excites me. Like, I've been doing this for a long time. I'm tired, I'm burned out, I'm old, crabby, and bitter about just almost everything. But that really gets me, that mindset of like, gosh, we could do that. Those complementary skills and mindsets, don't hold them under a bushel. Light them up. Like, let each other know what you're excited about and the mindsets and the things that really get you excited, and have those visioning conversations. All right, a couple more things. And then I think I'm going to finish right on time. Accountabilities. Number one, if it's not aligned with the mission, it's just not going to work. 2, make the partnership active versus passive. If it's a passive partnership, you're going to be always like, you should be doing more, but there's no accountability there. Frequent communication, as I've said. What do you want at the end state of this partnership? We want children who are engaged in their community. Okay, well, how are you going to measure that? We want students who are, before they enter our program to the end of our program, they feel more mentally healthy, right? You have to have some kind of end state that's articulated. I want arts organizations to start moving beyond having people to your facility or programs where, like, oh, well, we had this for them, we had a program for them, and that's the end of the relationship. So I want us as an arts community to build long-term relationships with our partners and the communities they serve, because then we can get a better outcome, not only for the students and communities, but for the arts nonprofit community, because we're demonstrating our value to the community. So, for example, our vision is all about the arts are an integral part of our social fabric. So what does that look like? It means that students are doing community projects. It means students are using creative ideas to advance their education. So we need to have those conversations about what our outcomes are. Co-development and co-learning. I can say I'm always learning from Ron Shea. I think she's learning from me as well. And remember, you're not going to get everything. You're going to have to give up something, right? Like if you're going to be in a partnership, it's not your show. It's partly your show. It's a co-show, but there's certain control aspects. I'm talking to myself here, certain control aspects that you have to give up. And then you have to have a criteria for walkaways. You have to be able to say at the beginning, when you outline your partnership, say, you know what, this is what's going to cause me and my organization to walk away. What's going to cause you and your organization to walk away? And if you articulate those walkaways, the feelings might still be hurt, but they're going to be less hurt, right? I've had partnerships just fall apart, and I realized, you know, we never really set up a way of working together, like a way of communicating together about, you know, what are we going to have to give up and what are our walkaways? So I think it's really important to articulate those. Final thought here. How do you measure this? I'd be happy to come back and do an entire another session on this sometime if you want me to. How do we measure our impact or our success? So I remember when I would talk to funders in the early years, they'd say, well, we have homeless kids and people are hungry and using drugs. How the arts is irrelevant. And I'm like, yeah, you know, how do you respond to that, right? And so if we're going to demonstrate our success to each other, and we're also going to demonstrate our success to our funders through our partnerships, there's basically, I call this 3-level, you know, metrics, or if for lack of a better word, meaningful metrics. Number one, you got to have your demographics and geographics. You got to know where the community you serve is coming from. And so every summer we do an intake of all of our students to go through our summer programs. We know exactly what neighborhoods, communities, challenges they've had in their neighborhood. We have a neighborhood safety question now, income, number of people in household. If you don't have that, you're not going to be successful in your partnership, right? You have to know who you're serving and why. The second thing is survey scales and questionnaires before and after. And so the way we do that, like, and we're going to, I know Ron Shea is going to run a year-end survey for her program, is last year we had a mental health expert come in and work with the students, and we did a before survey and an after survey of validated mental health instrument. And it showed conclusively that our program with that professional and artists helped the students' mental health, right? And Ron Shea did a fantastic job of getting those surveys out, and we worked hard to collect the data and do all of those things. But really, ultimately, and think about what we do, we're artists, we're the creatives of society. Like, as far as I'm concerned, we're the front line, or we should be. Is level 3 is that next level transformations. How did we, through our partnership, change lives? And how do we know we did? And we do that through longitudinal interviews, for example. You know, obviously, I'm very proud of the fact that we have 2 former students who are now adults. One of our board members, she just purchased her first home. So just amazing stories. Is you've got to show that the arts have primacy in our community and that we are transforming our community. These are things that we should sit down with our partners and develop together. All right, so I'm finished my presentation. I could have gone on for a lot longer, but I threw a lot of material at you. There's my information if you want to stay in touch with me. My website's nonprofitleadership.com. And please stay in touch with me. I'll answer any questions you have or send you any materials. And if you have questions for me, I'd like to open up the discussion. And I also want to just introduce Ron Shea. Ron Shea, are you there?
Yes, I am. Good morning, everybody.
Awesome. Just talk about our partnership a little bit and just all that good stuff, just for a couple of minutes. Are you there? You got to unmute. All right.
Can you hear me, everybody?
Yes.
Yep.
Okay. Good. So I don't know if you heard me, but good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
Mega is super excited to be partnered with Rob in creating communities. We have had an awesome time with him. He has hit some very great key components that we've went through in the beginning and where we're at now, and all of the wonderful things that we're actually doing here in the city of Annapolis and Arundel County. we started off with our Wiz production, which actually helped after our mental health awareness with our young people, we like to bring light. We like to bring color. We like to bring joy to the city of Annapolis. We want to bring joy to everybody. We want people to see what these young people and their families have to offer. And we're just super excited about the different avenues of where everything is going. We then went on to the Identity Empowerment Leadership Conference, which, like he said, we serviced 76 women. Out of 76 women, we've noticed that 10 of those women were able to walk out of that leadership conference with jobs, on-site jobs. So we're super excited about that. And then after this, we're actually doing the arts of fatherhood, and we're super excited about that. And that's just bringing everybody together, because it's just about knowing who you are and knowing your identity and finding your niche and finding your path and building relationships with these communities who are suffering so bad here in Anne Arundel County and Annapolis. So I'm excited. I hope to continue to work with creating communities and be partners with them. And you guys also on here. And like I said, like he said, we are always doing something big. Mega is exactly what it is. It's always think big, think large, think mega. So you will always see us around.
Yeah. Ron Shea, awesome. And I met Ron Shea through Leadership in Arundel. I was given a talk for Leadership in Arundel. And like I said, that talent development thing is really important. Maybe the most important thing I said today, and just trying to connect and be out in your community. You cannot be successful in partnerships unless you're out in your community. And that's that risk taking. We've got to go to places that we're either not familiar with or we don't have connections to kind of expand our network and to try to connect with people that, you know, we might not ordinarily connect with. It takes a risk, you know, you just got to do it. There's no template for getting out into your community. You just literally got to go. You know, you got to look for events. You got to try things. You got to shake hands, press the flesh, meet as many people as you can, knowing that you're going to, you know, 1 in 20 or 1 in 30 or 1 in 100, you might form a connection with and be able to build a partnership with. All right, questions for me, comments, what did you pick up from today's session? I'd love to hear from some other people so I can stop running my trap.
Let's see. I have a question, Rob. This is cool. What would you, I mean, you said 15 years you've been doing this. What would you say in the 15 years? I'm guessing it's like a 50-50 relationship. Is some you seeking out and finding those partners and then some coming to you, right?
Yes, I think that's a great question. I think, you know, people hear about what you do. And so I do get a fair amount of inquiries about like, what are you doing? And hey, how can we partner? And, but a lot of them you have to kind of organically build by just being at the same events or networking. And so a lot of them, as also to your question, we've had to seek some of them out. Like at Eastport United Methodist Church, I used to live just 1 block from there. I could see it from my house, but I know that they had a homework club there on Tuesdays and Thursdays. And so I said, well, what are they doing on Wednesdays? Is we don't have enough volunteers or energy to do anything on Wednesday. So I said, why don't we put an arts program smack dab in the middle of those 2 academic days, right? To kind of like balance them out. And so we've been doing that for a long time, but that was a partnership I actively sought out. So it is a balance.
Because I'm thinking as far as DEIA and growing, I've been at the Chesapeake Arts Center 9 years now. When I first came here, the population for Hispanic was actually very low, and now it has tripled. But there's not a lot of programs that are actively running in this area. And if no one's familiar, Chesapeake Arts Center is Brooklyn Park, so we're the northern Anne Arundel County. So now I am trying to expand what does that look like? You know, I think a partnership is definitely a key component to running an organization, is making sure that we, you know, find those organizations that are outside of CEC that can still fit to help with the Hispanic population, or just in general programming to grow. I think it's important that people look at what your community needs are and finding the organizations that can help you with that, deliver your mission as much as theirs.
Yeah, Jesse, I see you. One thing I wanted to say is I am a big fan of pop-up art outreach. So like if there's a neighborhood and there's a church parking lot, like set it up, you know. I mean, I maybe that wouldn't apply to Chesapeake Arts Center, but like it's like a lemonade stand. It's amazing who turns up and shows up when you just do something kind of spontaneous in a community. And what we do with our eSport program is we flyer the neighborhood, the building 1000 Madison twice before the program comes up, front sides in Spanish, back sides in English. And so try to just build it organically that way. Jesse.
Yeah, I was going to kind of, I'm sorry, I can't pronounce your name. It's NCA.
Nicole.
Nicole Croatia.
Okay, so that's, okay, I'm sorry. So Nicole, I'm the executive director of the OIC of Anne Arundel County. And some of the same issues that you just spoke about, we had issues with a lot of our participants were non-English speaking, and they would try to sign up for our programs, but they didn't speak English. So last year we took some of the funding that we got and we borrowed some of the funding and started the GED in Spanish, which is equivalent to an English speaking GED. We also started the ESL classes. And now as we move forward, I'm using my artist platform to now start art classes or give art classes to non-English speaking participants. So yeah.
So we need to connect.
Yeah, we definitely need to connect. I spoke with Pam Brown with Youth and Families or Youth and Children's. I don't really know the name of it.
Youth and Children's, Baynard County, yeah.
And her and Ollie, they had the same issues. So they reached out to me before the pandemic to help their non-English speaking participants because it is a growing number.
Yeah.
So,
it is, and I think that people, we have to look at that, and it changes. Like I said, when 9 years ago, it wasn't that in the community what we were serving, and now it's shifted. So the organization has to shift with that.
Yeah,
you know, we get so, I think what you're saying, Rob, too, and we have another question for Mickey, that how do you know, when your staff is already stretched thin and trying to build that. We all have, especially artists, we have a million ideas, right? Yeah. But how do we build so that it is, you know, it works for everyone and it does impact the community without stretching all of us so thin?
Yeah, absolutely. So I have an answer for that. It's not like you're going to solve it tomorrow through this answer, but I thought about this because that's a great question. So post George Floyd, our culture experienced a tidal wave of bringing these issues to the forefront and awareness of our community, okay? Now, the tragedy of that is these issues were always there prior to that. It's just that you couldn't ignore it anymore and you drive down Forest Drive and not understand that there are neighborhoods there that are very challenged for a lot of different reasons. And so what has happened is, as a result of that tidal wave, organizations who either weren't active in that area or were just kind of starting to get that going have been demanded to get into that arena. And that is both a good thing because it creates a challenge for many arts organizations and organizations in general. But it's also stretching our capacity in ways that we weren't prepared for, okay? Which is what I hear you saying, Mickey. Now, what I would say is, if you want to think about DEIA, stop thinking about it, and I'm not saying this to you, Mickey, I'm saying to all of us, stop thinking about it in terms of a 1 to 3 year process. This is a 10 to 15 year process, which is going to take intentional building over a long arc of time, okay? So the reality is, what you're doing now, don't worry about like, we got to do this, we got to do this. That's going to stretch your capacity. I don't know about you, but I have a lot of anxiety being a nonprofit leader. I mean, it's a tough job. you know, it's really got me tired and really burned out some years. So instead of being reactive to this post-George Floyd world we're living, where it's literally been a tsunami, a tidal wave, let's take a deep breath and take a step back. And the first step, Mickey, and all of us, is what if we were living in a just community, in a world where there was equity? Number one, what would that world look like? Number two, what role does the arts play in creating that community? And number three, what role can our organization, as small as it is, play in that? That is a 10 or 15 year process, okay? So yes, take the trainings. They're very important. There should be 100 people on this call today, and kudos to you all for being here. There should be 100 people on all of these calls. You're the people that get it, and you're the people that understand it. And it's more than a set of things that we do. It is more of a consciousness shift over a period of time. Now, I got lucky with creating communities. When I started it, I was an artist in residence at Maryland Hall for the creative arts. And this was 15 years ago. At the time, they had no outreach program of any kind whatsoever. Zero, nada, nothing. Rien. Okay. And I'm excited to say it's really changed. Laura Brino's done wonderful things at Maryland Hall. It's great now. Okay. It's doing so much more. It's on it. But when I was there as a young whippersnapper, they had nothing, and it pissed me off. And so I started creating communities as a result, because I was like, just because I live in a certain zip code and because I'm of a certain race, I have access to all these amazing arts experiences. But what about all these kids that I go see as a visiting artist in schools? I don't ever want to leave those kids. I want to make sure that they have the wonder and the excitement and all that I had as a child. So I got lucky because we built equity, diversity, equity, inclusion right into the organization from the day one. It's hard if you're an organization that has not focused on that, and it's not a criticism, to kind of retrofit that. But what we want to be careful is not to bolt it on, but rather build it organically by having conversations, shifting our consciousness, taking trainings, and having a little bit of self-compassion for ourselves. Having a little self-compassion for ourselves. We can't do it all at once. It's a lifelong process. I think that's a good place for me to end it right there.
Thank you, Rob.
You're welcome.
Does anyone have one last question before we are at our 12 o'clock mark almost? But Rob, I appreciate it. It was super helpful.
Thank you. I'll stay on for a few more minutes if anyone's open to that, if anyone has any specific questions for me. Jesse, I have a photography program getting ready to start at Maryland Hall for young people exactly the age that you're looking for, and it's going to be transformational, and it's done through another organization called Vision Workshops, National Geographic magazine. So please email me.
Definitely.
Okay. Thanks, everybody. I'm happy to stay on for a few extra minutes. Otherwise, I just thank you, everybody, for being here today.
Martha has
Yeah, well, I just wanted to say that the Arts Council is on board. The Arts Council is on board, and all of you who are seeking some funding for DEIA related activities, please look at our mini grants, which are open until the end of the month, and keep an eye on our grant programs that are coming up for our fiscal 23. We are supporting DEI, we are promoting it, and we are even requiring it. So DEIA, take a look at the Arts Council. We are wholly in support of these kinds of issues that Rob and other speakers have presented to us. Thanks.
Yeah. And I just want to say thanks again to the Arts Council, Chesapeake Arts Center, and AngelWing for sponsoring these. And just to all of you, I mean, I know what you're going through as an arts leader, and it's very challenging. Just trying to manage our day to day and just get through the day, and then having this layer on top it can be overwhelming. And so I just wanted to offer my words of encouragement. Just you got it. Just keep going and just keep doing what we're doing. Okay.
Thank you, Rob.
right.
So the next one will be June 9th with Pete Smith and Aisha Smith from Anne Arundel County Executive DEI area. So I hope you guys will come back and join us for the next one. And then we will have also our conference on August 18th at the Chesapeake Arts Center.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank
Thanks,
you all.
everybody.
So much.
All right.
And you said you'll be sharing that presentation, and I'm so
Absolutely.
glad because it was awesome. And I got a lot out of it. So
Awesome.
thank you so much.
All right, I'm gonna hang for another minute, but otherwise we're good.